Hello, this is Steve with Apogee Hardwood Cleaning, and today I'm going to continue the blog series from the website. So today we're going to be going over screen recoat versus full refinishing, choosing the right service for your floors. This blog was published back on February 13th, 2024. Alright, so the screen recoat versus a full refinishing, referring to sanding, is a question that I answer a lot with potential clients. So the best way to understand the difference between the two is think of your floor in layers. You have the finish on top, then you have the stain, then the wood underneath. So you get the three layers. So the screen and recoat works on the top layer. It actually doesn't remove any layers from the floor. What we're doing is the screening will scratch out that top layer so that we can add another layer on top of it with the new polyurethane. When you're doing sanding, you're removing the top layer, you're removing the stain layer, and you're basically removing a portion of the wood layer. So you're taking off the top layers of the floor. So that's really the basics of understanding the difference between the two. The screen recoat doesn't remove anything from the floor, whereas sanding removes the top layers, bringing it back down to just the wood. So everything on top of that is removed. So understanding the pros and cons of each. So the pros for the screen and recoat is it's typically a lot cheaper than sanding and refinishing the floor. It is typically faster. We can typically get a screen and recoat done in a single day, whereas the sanding typically takes several days, depending on how big the floor is and exactly what the issues are. It could be anywhere from a couple days out to a week or more, depending on what needs to be done on the floor. And the third pro here is preserving the wear layer. Since we're not removing anything from the floor, we're not shortening the life of the floor. In actuality, we're actually extending the life of the floor because the current polyurethane layer is getting a new polyurethane on top, so making that floor last even longer before it needs to be sanded. And each time you sand the floor, it shortens the lifespan of the floor, because the floor can only be sanded so many times before you get down to the tongue and groove, and the floor will start destabilizing at that point. Now the cons for the screen and recoat is because we're not removing any layers, we are really limited on our capability of repairing the floor. So things like water stains and sun fading, basically anything dealing with the color of the floor, we can't fix with a screen and recoat, because the color of the floor is down 2 layers into the floor. So it's the stain layer is where the color is. So that's beneath the current polyurethane. And the only way you can fix that is to remove the current polyurethane and remove the current stain, so that way you can make the changes needed to fix the color of the floor. And that can only be done through the full refinishing or sanding of the floor. So the blog then goes into the pros and cons of the full refinishing, which is sanding. So the pros is the fact you can do a full restoration. You can fix any scratches, any gouges, any deep stains. You can change the colors. You can deal with sun fading. So all the different issues that you can have with the floor can be completely restored with a sanding. The other pro with sanding is the fact you can customize. You can change the color of your floor. If you don't like the current color, or you don't like something about the floor, you can make those changes because you're back down to the wood level, and you can start rebuilding from there. So you can use a different stain, you can use change the colors. There's a number of different things you can change up when you're starting to rebuild it back up. The cons for the full refinish is that it is a higher cost. It is a more comprehensive process, so it does take more time and more money. So it takes more time from the contractors that's doing the work, as well as more of your time of having them in the house. So having that higher amount of time is a higher cost. And the other con is there are a limited number of times you can sand the floor. A wood floor can literally last hundreds of years when it's properly taken care of. But the wood floor usually can only be sanded maybe 5 to 7 times throughout that lifetime. So for most people, that's not an issue, because then they're not going to be around that floor long enough to have hit that 5 to 7 years, even if they don't ever do a screen recoat. But you do want to think about the life of your floor and try to extend that life out as long as possible, because those floors can literally last hundreds of years. Choosing the right service for you. So the first consideration is the condition of the floor. If the floor is in really bad shape, the full refinishing and sanding is really your only option. You have to do that if there are color problems, if there's deep scratches, gouges, any issues with the wood, you really have to go with the full restoration of the refinishing with the sanding. The reality is screen recoat is intended to be a maintenance process. The screen recoat should be done on normal wear and tear of the finish, and as it wears down, which it will with traffic, walking and stuff on it, it will wear out over time. And before that wearing out gets down to the level where it's damaging the wood, you should be doing a screen and recoat to get more polyurethane on it. That way the wood doesn't get damaged, and you can extend the times in between your full refinishing and sanding of the floor, extending the life of the floor. But that screen and recoat doesn't get done, the wood starts getting damaged either from walking or deep gouges, other things, then you're going to have to do the full sanding. But the second consideration for doing which one you want to do is your budget and your time constraints. And some people are willing to not get the perfect solution, not get the full restoration, still having some issues with their floor, and going with the screen and recoat over the full restoration because they don't have the budget for the full restoration, or they don't have the time that's going to be needed to do the full restoration. So those are things you can consider when you are looking at the two that you need to do. All right, so that is your screen and recoat versus a full refinishing or sanding. So have a great day. Thank you.